The following may contain language that is not suitable for all audiences. It's time for the Low Fact Podcast.
I forgot the bells.
That's okay. So, what's going on in the world this week?
Tell me.
Well, I think I had something written down somewhere.
Well, didn't you say that there's a bunch of conservative regimes?
Oh, here's one. So I guess sometime this week, somebody died in the autonomous zone, I guess in Portland or Seattle or someplace. Basically, they had that autonomous zone where they wouldn't let any cops or anybody in.
Oh, that's still going on?
Oh, yeah, it's been going on. So apparently somebody had been shot in several places, but the EMS wouldn't go in there because Antifa or whoever it was, it's like block everybody off.
Was this recent?
Yeah, this week. And the person, bled out.
Well, because that happened a while ago as well.
And I guess the parents of the person that died is suing the city for $3 billion or something because they didn't go in there. So, yeah, it's Seattle. So it's kind of funny. You don't want any cops or anybody in the zone. Then you call 911 to get somebody in there, and
when they don't go.
Well, because they blocked that off. I'm like, well, what are you supposed to do?
Well, that's like a lefty mentality in a nutshell, though.
Yeah.
But that sounds like an old story. You sure that this happened this week?
Yeah. Oh, another thing that when I was watching Tucker Carlson, because he's kind of been, I don't know if going off is the right word, but he's been asking questions about vaccine deaths.
Mm-hmm. Which is a no-no, right?
Yeah. Apparently, after he brought it up, all these news agencies like, oh, Tucker Carlson doing all this, claiming the vaccine, blah, 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 going on. He's like, no, I just asked how many people died. Because I guess he went on some site that the CDC uses, like VAERS or something, that tells. Mm-hmm. And I think the deaths are like in the thousands.
Really?
People that died shortly after they received the vaccine.
How about miscarriages and fucking infertility?
Well, I don't know. That's probably a whole different thing. But it was in the thousands. But for flu shot deaths, it's like in the low hundreds.
Yeah, so this vaccine's worse.
Yeah, how much so, nobody says, but, I guess it's a no-no to ask. I'm just like, okay.
But why would it be a no-no to ask?
Because it doesn't fit the narrative, I suppose.
Which is that, it's safe?
Well, that's the thing.
That it's good for everybody?
That's...
Because the spin on it has changed now. Now they're like, oh, you need to do it for everybody else. You need to do it to not only protect yourself but to protect the group. So you have to get it.
Let's see other things on the news. President Joe wants to raise taxes.
Wait! I thought he wasn't going to raise taxes.
Well, he wants to raise taxes on people that make over $400,000 a year or something.
Right.
But that's what he's claiming, and I think the math is also kind of fuzzy because they act like it's going to be fully funded, but it's not. A lot of the stuff that he wants to propose isn't going to be funded for like 10 years. So they're using the number after it's fully funded by saying, oh, this is how much this, but it's not. Supreme Court considering an open carry or a concealed carry
case
in New York.
What's the case? Do you know?
I had not off the top of my head. And I think Texas just passed an open carry law.
Open carry?
Yeah.
So you can just kind of have your gun just out?
Yeah. And there are some people that sit there and say there should be reciprocal open carry.
Meaning what?
Well, if you can open carry in one state, you should be able to open carry in another, just like driver's licenses, right? If you have a driver's license in one state, then that driver's license is okay when you go to another state.
Oh, shit.
The UBI is back in the news somewhat.
What is UBI?
Universal Basic Income.
See, I don't get that because That would just basically encourage people not to work.
Well, that's one of the explanations people are using for the super low unemployment, the super low job creation numbers. Because they say it's like a bit of a paradox. There's all these people there's all these jobs open, but there's all these people that don't want to work, that aren't working.
Because they just think they're going to get more money from the government?
Well, there's in some cases you can get more money from the government collecting unemployment than you can when you were working.
Well, I know that happened during the last year.
Well, it's supposed to. They want to keep it going until June or something. But UBI is just one of those things. I'm like, I don't know why people think it's such a great thing. I mean,
I remember some guy like frickin' cornering me at a Christmas party, and going on about the universal basic income, and he was a true believer, and I didn't really know enough about it to kind of debate it with him, but I wish I had.
Well, the hard part, the tricky part about that is you need to set it low enough so that people will actually work.
Then what's the point? It's just going to supplement?
That's the point. It's supposed to supplement or whatever. It's essentially, some people consider it like a wealth redistribution.
It sounds like that. I mean, but where are you going to get the money from?
Taxing poor people.
Not the rich.
Rich people can leave. I mean, the whole thing about like Sweden being some kind of socialist paradise or whatever, the Nordic countries. Mm-hmm. First of all, they will vehemently deny that they're socialists. But when places like Sweden were super socialist, everybody left.
Really? Oh, because shit was going to pot.
Yeah, so the only people left were the poor people. And so they were like, oh, we need to tax the poor people, the people that can't leave. Which is what they're doing now. So, if...
SMH.
And then, here's another funny thing. In Europe seems to be getting a little bit more quote-unquote conservative.
Yeah.
Like England just had their by-elections and the Tories won a lot more seats.
Yeah, my friends won't be happy about that.
What else? Hungary has kind of gone a little bit right-wing national. So they're not not having any of the critical race theory stuff. A lot of the stuff that's been coming out of the United States, which
why is it coming out of the United States? Why does it always come out of the United States?
Well, all the progressive stuff really started in the early 20th century. When people here would go for graduate education, they'd have to go to Germany.
Okay.
And back at the early 20th century, Germany was the poo, I suppose.
The shit.
And they brought over a lot of their commie ideals, and it's been kind of percolating. And this whole thing about a lot of people, when they're sitting there saying that the critical race theory, the whole lefty stuff, the whole progressive stuff, all this junk that I think that if you have a thinking brain, it's gotta unsettle you.
It does.
But as I was telling you before, if you think about it, that stuff's only really been percolating for the last 50, maybe 55 years. So it started in the late 60s. Was going strong. Was starting to pick up speed when we were starting our education, like in elementary school. By the time we got to college, it was pretty.
I don't remember
heavy.
Any of it at school or university though.
Well, maybe it was different for you, but for
or maybe I was just like unaware of it.
For me, the whole political correctness thing was really big when I was just leaving college, and now it's gone just super the other way.
I just think it ruins stuff.
Well, it does, and
the political correctness and the politicization of things, which I think is probably something different.
Well, I think it's all symptomatic of what's been happening, and I'm not going to go into religious reasons. That's a go-to thing for a lot of people. It's like, oh, it's because people turned away from God, and I'm like, well, people have been turning away from God ever since Jesus was alive. So and before. So that's while that might be a big reason. One of the big indicators of that is we've become a little bit more feminized culturally. The balance has shifted. And I'm not saying that there was a good old days when it was, if the balance, I don't know that that culturally the world has ever hit what I would consider the right balance. Because if you think about it, we are a species of complementary sexes. When things get over masculinized, when things are
over masculine sounds right.
When it's too masculine, right? You get authoritarianism and tyranny for power. But when things are over feminized,
everybody dies.
Now you get tyranny and authoritarianism of good intentions.
Which is worse, I think. Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You know, we swung the balance a little bit too far to the feminine side of things. And, you know, I mean, that's why you get this whole idea of having, you know, life without risk. I mean, that's the whole reaction to coronavirus in a nutshell. In my opinion, having this life without risk. I mean, okay, without going into the nuts and bolts of the coronavirus, essentially, a small segment of the population, it's very bad for, you know, people in their 60s plus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those people have not a good time with it. But if you're kind of young, and, you know, when I say young, I would say 30 and under.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of like a bad cold.
And that's why I don't understand all these young people getting the vaccine and getting sick.
Because the balance has gone a little bit too far to the feminine side of things, like I said.
So why are women more fearful than men? Because they're not as strong?
Physically?
Yeah, I mean, like, why, I mean, that's obviously, it's a sweeping statement, but just in general, it seems like men are more, I don't know, they're more risk takers, or you can call it, I mean, I guess if you're a woman, you might say more reckless, but why is that?
I don't know, but it just is.
I guess it doesn't matter why. The why is not so important.
But, you know, this whole obsession with safety, with a life without risk, that's not living.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know how much of that is because I'm not female, or how much of it's because I was on the tail end of the more masculine side of things. But also, you know, by the time we were born, especially here in America, things have been going really good for decades.
Well, there's also still a military culture here, and that's pretty masculine.
Yeah, but that military culture has been infused and taken over by the feminine side of stuff.
Has it though, really? I mean,
as much as it can. I remember when I was of military age, you know, there was a lot of pushback. Like, you know, like the military stopped using live ammo in exercises, like when they, I think it's
to reduce the risk.
Yeah, like at boot camp when they practice, you know, doing the hardcore World War II type combat, they used to use live ammo
over the top of everybody.
Yeah.
So if you stood up, you died then.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was always a couple of people
that freaked out and then got mowed down.
Yeah. Because it wasn't somebody shooting it; they were automatic. I mean, hey, even in the 20s, in movies, they used live ammo. You
mean when they were shooting the movie?
Yeah. Well, when you had scenes where people were like, you know, where bullets were going off or hitting buildings out behind people, they didn't have squibs. It was actually someone with a Tommy gun.
Just shoot.
Who would shoot above the talent.
Damn, dude. I don't know if I'd want to be that talent. I mean, you'd have to have a pretty good guy.
It's kind of hard to shoot somebody.
Is it really, though?
Yeah. If they're zigzagging along and you're not, you know, you don't know where they're going. But yeah, I mean, I do think that the reason why things are the way they are right now is because, and I've been saying this, is because of an over feminization of things. And funnily enough, I was watching an interview with someone named Heather McDonald, who is she's a scholar, And she's
Is she Scottish?
no, she's American, but she's totally on board with my ideas. And I'm like, did I think of them independently? And, she just happened to agree? Or did I find Heather McDonald on YouTube or someplace? And I was like, oh, and forgot about it. But a lot of the stuff that she says.
You said she's kind of odd as well, though, right?
She is. It's just.
So you've been watching interviews with her?
I saw one interview with her, and you could tell that she's incredibly intelligent and has a vast wealth of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Unlike you.
Exactly. I went to yeah, exactly like me. But when I was listening to her, I was like, wow, she's kind of out there. But in terms of, she's a little kooky in terms of her personality, but a lot of stuff she said, I was like, yeah. Because she was talking about how she swims daily.
Okay.
And I think she's on the West Coast now, but she was in New York. And it was like to try and get a spot to swim was almost impossible. Like you could
in New York,
yeah, because you could try at 5 a.m, and if you had to go to some app and try at 5, and you may or may not get it at 5 a.m, right? But in the West Coast out here, she was like, it's just easy. You just go, you swim, blah blah blah.
Right.
And the interviewer, which was Tucker Carlson. Yes, I've been on a Tucker Carlson kick lately.
I don't know how he's so annoying to me.
I like listening to him, but she was basically, her statement was, yeah, well, the pool in New York is run by women, and they have good intentions, they try to be all this whatever, and it just ends up failing. And I was like, well, and then I hear a lot of stories from people who were raised by single moms,
mm-hmm.
and it's the same thing. A woman in charge by herself, yeah, they're incredible, right? I mean, mothers do incredible things. They sacrifice, they work like 2 jobs, whatever, to keep their kids, fed and raised and everything. But because we're a species of complementary sexes, if it takes a man and a woman to make a kid, then you would think that it takes a man and a woman to raise the kid.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing, is that there's all this emphasis now on motherhood and mothers, and very much not an emphasis on the importance of fathers. Like, it's just like it. Just there's so much entertainment content out there where the dad's just absent, or any kind of male role model. Like basically the men are usually portrayed in a pretty negative fashion, or if there is a man, then it's basically a man who's
But that's the funny thing.
What is it? Castrated.
But that's the funny thing. It seems from all the things, anecdotal and research stuff that I've kind of been exposed to or read, the funny thing about being a dad or a man is just it's kind of easy in that you just have to be around.
Right.
So it could be that the women are a little angry or jealous of the fact that they have to be this hands-on and all that junk to get anything done. Dude just has to be around.
And it's like around it's the formative years, right? Like the early years.
The early years, but you don't have to be that involved as a father to instill what it is that men do.
That's just odd.
So there could be a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's not like
it's not jealousy,
but it's just like
ambivalence.
No, it's like why am I sitting here cooking, cleaning, hugging, doing all this junk, and this dude just needs to show up, listen to your mother, and then that's it.
Well, see, because when I had my little thing I used to do at the library, it was kind of like that sometimes. Like, there would be a mom, and then there would be a couple of kids that were just out of control, right? Like, just pulling books, not listening to the mother or whatever, and I would be like, hey, don't do that, and then it would just stop. And I wasn't even their dad. I was just some dude at the library. But and in general, if the difference between a lot of times the mom bringing it, and there's obviously exceptions, right? There were moms that didn't have the kids that were out of control. But if it was a man with their kid, then if the kid kind of got unruly, the man would take them aside and be like, hey, this isn't going to work, and we're going to be leaving if you don't kind of toe the line. But when the mum would say it to the kids wouldn't listen.
Yeah, well, I think it's just in the nature of women and the nature of men. I mean, I think a big purpose or a big reason for the men is to kind of temper the women a little bit, and vice versa, right? I mean, because if you just have a world of men, then apparently you have lots of violence,
right?
Lots of crime, just lots of
bad stuff,
right? So the women do temper the men,
right?
Civilize them a bit, right? And the men temper the women.
Civilize them. Yeah, I can see that.
The men temper the women, not letting them be overly civilized. Killing them with kindness, if you will.
That just makes me think of my dad when my stepmom wasn't around, supping up meat blood with white bread and just eating it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope no one takes this to mean, women can't do it all because men can.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of the stuff you're saying now is just like totally not acceptable.
Well, I remember one conversation we had with a young woman, and basically she was saying, something to the point of like, I can have it all. And I was like, that objectively
is impossible.
It's not only impossible, it's just an untrue statement. And immediately she's like, oh, because a guy can? I was like, I never uttered those words.
Yeah, and you wouldn't try and maintain that a guy could either.
No, I mean,
because
in my young adulthood, I remember my place, my apartment compared to the apartment of some of the women that I knew.
Right.
Their places were just comfortable
and
homey, and
that's why I always lived with women.
Smelled nice
at university,
and there was all kinds of food, and just it was great. And they'd come to my place, and I'm like, wow, this is such a Spartan place. You got nothing on the walls. You've got one comfortable chair and a comfortable love seat.
The fuck is a love seat?
It's just a couch for two people.
Oh, okay. All right.
My place.
So you just had a couch and a chair,
and a desk for my workstation. For when I was in school.
See, I never lived in a place like that. But it's probably because I lived with women.
But, I don't like clutter. I don't like decorations. I don't like, even growing up, I had no posters on my walls.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
You're an odd duck.
Well, my room now, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's just.
I compare it to my room is just like nothing but clutter.
My room
piles of books.
My room looks like a war barrack.
It does, man. I couldn't live in a room like that, though. Like, I guess I like clutter. I like being surrounded by stuff.
I like nice things. I just don't have that much stuff, but the stuff I have is really nice.
Yeah, it's just that's interesting. And so do you think it's going to continue this way, or do you think there'll be like where the pendulum, everyone's just like, you know what, it's just going to naturally like swing the other way because people are like, this isn't really working.
Well, it will.
Well, some aspects of this aren't working.
Well, no, everyone knows it's not working. Everyone knows when there's an imbalance, a disturbance in the force, if you will. Whether it's Somalia in the 90s, and now it's pretty much a failed state, but in the 90s when it was just a free-for-all,
yeah,
everyone kind of knew, it was like, this ain't good.
Yeah.
And a lot of them left. And, kind of...
Well, Somalia is like a good example of the...
Well, anecdotally...
Men, right? I mean...
Well, anecdotally, it's kind of funny that, they would leave this very hot equatorial place, make it to the United States, and they all end up in Minnesota. Which seems the opposite of, Southern Africa.
That is weird, because, like, I know when the Scots immigrated to New Zealand, they all like went to the South Island, where it was like cold and there wasn't like just plains and just like kind of miserable in the wintertime, and they were like, oh yeah, this is where we'll this is where we'll put our flag on the ground.
That's what I always thought about the Scandinavians. I mean, I had a lot of friends from Minnesota when I was in college, and I was like,
makes sense.
Well, this one girl I'm thinking of, she was from Minnesota, and she was like Norwegian and Swedish.
Was her name Sigrid?
No, but she did think that we should have kids and name them Thor and Loki.
Wow. Real for real?
I think it was a joke, but behind that joke seemed a little.
There was like some truth to it.
And of course, at the time, I was
She's tall.
She was
Tallish.
She was like 5'5" or so.
Okay.
But I saw a picture of all the males in her family, and they look like frickin' Paul Bunyan. And so I kind of
Paul Bunyan's a big dude, right?
Yeah, I kind of had this vision of like, well, the Koreans are a pretty pure culture racially. Like, there's only one ethnic group.
Yeah.
Not like Vietnam or China.
Right.
And I was like, so when you get a group that pure, and you intermingle them with a different group, like a pure group, like the Scandinavians.
Yeah.
Like they can turn out like really awesome or just really fugly. And I was like, I'm willing to take a shot.
You should have, because now you could have like some really, really attractive children running around.
Well, they'd probably be in their 20s, so
yeah, they could be in the movies.
Yeah, so I could be that dad.
That dad, yeah. Wouldn't it be fun to be that dad, though?
Like Gary Coleman's parents, right? He had to sue them, right?
Well, also Britney Spears' father.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he took over. He had he tried to have her declared incompetent so that he could take over all her shit. And now I think she's fighting him in court now.
She should. I don't think she's incompetent.
There's a new documentary about Britney Spears coming out.
I used to love her.
I think I might have to watch the documentary.
But yeah, so I guess the message for today is the balance has gone a little too far to the feminine side, and we need to scooch it back.
There's a disturbance in the force.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be a good balance. I mean, men need to be men and women need to be women. And over the last 50 some odd years, more so over the last 20 some odd years, it's gone way over, and things are a bit askew, I suppose.
And then are we going to suggest a solution?
I don't know that I am smart enough to suggest a solution. I am barely smart enough to know that things just aren't right. And look, I would know that
you never suggest a solution.
I would know that things aren't right if it was too much on the quote unquote toxic masculine side of stuff.
Yeah.
Because, you do that and you have basically the cultures of the early 20th century.
Like where?
World wars were fought.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh,
that was
all things.
That was like the weird intermingling of the, all the bad stuff of a culture being too masculine, with the idea of like, oh, well, we need to band together because all these dickheads on top are just screwing us little people over.
Right.
So then you got like fascism,
communism.
Yeah, I mean those philosophies are, I think, overly feminized.
That's very interesting.
So you got like the intermingling of the two extremes into a weird bulldog extreme that just was not good for most of the world.
Maybe this is a discussion for another day, but I always found it funny that the fascists and the communists didn't like each other because they seem so similar.
Well, they are, but they had two different goals. I mean, the communism now is more of the fascist type, the more the what the scholars call right wing, and the only reason why they call it right wing is because there was independent money.
Okay.
So if you're truly communist or socialist, then the government controls all the means of production.
But they're very similar.
Right, they are. They're exactly the same, except for in one, the government owns all the means of production. In another, you have some elites that it's like, what is it? The perfect marriage between business and government. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what communist China is right now.
But it's funny because it seems like things like the church, for example, the Catholic Church, obviously in Italy they had to deal with the fascists, but it seemed like they were able to negotiate positions with the fascists, but that never really happened under any kind of communist regime.
Well, right, but because
I guess it was because of that, right?
Well, in communism, there was a total refutation, a total disposal, total
It's almost a hatred of. It's almost
disavowing
of religion.
Yeah, well, of everything.
You've read the Communist Manifesto, right?
A long time ago.
Because like he's pretty upfront about it. You don't need family. You don't need religion.
But the funny thing is he only lived because his family supported him.
Yeah, well, that's a fucking gigantic irony, isn't it?
And then on top of that, right?
I think irony is the right word.
Yeah, well, that's the way it's used,
Whatever.
even though it's not definitionally correct.
So it's his mom, right? He lived with his mom.
Well, and his dad, his parents basically supported him. They gave him money, and they were always like, "Get a frickin' job."
But I'd never. I mean, I'd heard of the Communist Manifesto, but I never read it. When I read it, I was like,
You're nuts.
This thing doesn't really like make any fucking sense, and it's not that well written.
Yeah, you
and
read
B,
it. Well, you read it in English, but
yeah, but he was totally upfront about it from the beginning. Like, it's not like anything's hidden in it.
yeah, you read it and you're like, Carl, you're knucking futs.
Yeah, so
but. And this is stuff that everyone just kind of intuitively feels, I believe. If you feel something's just not right with the force, things are just kind of awry, weird. Mm-hmm. That's you feeling it.
But now, then, so
where it goes wrong is when you sit there and decide, well, we need to change, we need to get rid of everything, which is what Carl was saying,
right?
And just get rid of it all. And I'm like, well, how are you gonna live? Because if you get rid of it all you really do is change the people at the top. And then once you get a taste of that power, it's not like you're gonna give it up.
How are you gonna survive without a family anyway? Like the government's gonna take care of you, please.
Well, exactly. And there are plenty of people that want that because they think they're going to be the ones at the top, and like I said before, things rarely happen that way. Yeah, there's going to be some people at the top. Chances are you're not going to be it. It's going to be the one that's just weaker and way more.
You're going to be at the bottom of the chain, or you're going to be dead.
Well, you're going to be fodder for the revolution. That's what happened to most of the commies.
Yeah.
With the October Revolution, the Soviets.
Shit, everybody died.
A lot of them did.
I mean, Stalin killed everybody.
Yeah.
Including all his own people.
Yeah.
Like, people who were in his clique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was still lines out the door of people wanting to be in the clique. Like, you just saw what happened to the guy that you're replacing. What makes you think you're going to be able to outlast?
Yeah.
And it wasn't I'm not talking about the second guy.
There were a few that outlasted him, which is pretty impressive.
I'm not talking about the second guy. I'm talking about like the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th guy. Like you just saw what
Khrushchev was one of the ones that survived, right?
Yeah, but probably because it was thought that he wasn't that. I mean, it was like Brezhnev, right? I mean, the whole thing about Brezhnev, everybody thought
I might have been thinking of Brezhnev.
Well, no, Brezhnev, he was around then too, but the whole idea about Brezhnev, like the whole inside joke was that, he was dumber than a box of hammers. And yet he was the general secretary of the Communist Party at one point and the leader of the Soviet Union. And I'm like, wow. But yeah, I mean, Khrushchev, he was... Yeah,
He must have been wily as fuck.
Well, he was. He was pretty wily and lucky. And that's I guess we can end with this. I mean, you really have a problem with my idea of destiny and luck and fortune.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can explain it in a way that you can understand. I mean, it's like, just because, look, a person will succeed because of their destiny and fortune. Everybody does the same stuff. Everybody works towards,
Whatever.
Yeah. And if it's your destiny, you'll get it. If it's not, you won't. But people being people, no one's just going to sit around and do nothing. And I think that's where you kind of have the disconnect in your mind, because you think when I say this, I mean, I can just sit on my tuchus.
Yeah.
And,
Well, you can't, I mean, quite technically, you can though, right?
Sure, but as a person, I'm not going to be able to do that. I can't do that. I'm working my tuchus off in my mind.
But you see, I've talked to other people about this philosophy before.
And they think it's full of crap?
they just can't get their head around it. And these are people who think that these are people who are like, I'm the master of my own destiny.
No, you're not.
Yeah. So they have like and I think I'm like somewhere in the middle.
Well, yeah, it's a skewed self-serving thing, but it's also a defense mechanism, right? Everybody works at their job.
Well, these aren't particularly religious people either.
Well, I'm not particularly religious, and yet I am.
I think destiny is pretty religious.
You know, the problem I have with a lot of religions is not the religion. It's the problem I have with religion is not the religion, it's the people. But it's not like you can have a religion without the people. So, you know, and the testament of how powerful the religion and God is that despite all of us mucking things up, it still works. I mean, I was going to add something else, but...
Add it.
Well, no, not really, because you know, one of your favorite topics, the Catholic Church.
Yep.
If you think about it, right? Think about all the craziness and the crappiness that goes on in the church.
Yeah. So much so that they have to address it en masse.
And a lot of times incorrectly because, you know, according to some people, the church is the clergy, the hierarchy of the church is full of devil worshipers and homosexuals and all the sin and sinners and all that going on. And despite all that, it still works.
I think those people should be out.
So, you know, we will end with how mighty is God? God is so mighty, he will take a ne'er-do-well, a slacker or whatever, and take him to the top.